So this year has a bunch of new racing games coming up, and possibly due to my slow upload schedule, some might have already released. Mario Kart World, Sonic Cross Worlds, Kirby Air Riders, Fast Fusion, Speedrunners 2. I'm looking forward to pretty much all of these, so I feel like now's a good time to give my quick thoughts to some of their predecessors in preparation. Not all of them, obviously, that's like 9 Mario Karts and 11 Sonic Racers, but I do want to take a look at one entry per series. And I know I probably won't get to every series because plans might shift in the future, but I want to cover at least 2 of them, one of which being Sonic. I know Mario Kart 8 would probably make more sense, especially with Mario Kart World already out, but I'm not even sure if I'll make a review on 8 or World to begin with. I'll certainly get Mario Kart World for myself because I'm confident that it'll be a fun game, but I want to let it sit for a while if I ever cover it here. If anything, please don't buy the game for $80 and get that bundle if possible. $80 for any base game is 100% not worth it right now, but that's a topic for another day. Anyways, I'm looking into Sonic Riders in preparation for Cross Worlds, as that game has the hoverboards, or extreme gear as they call it, returning from Riders as a vehicle type. Although Cross Worlds follows the same formula as the previous Sonic racing games, I'd prefer to look at Riders instead due to my greater interest towards it and the hundreds of hours I've spent on it. That also means I might be biased towards this game in some way, but I'll try and keep things objectively fair. So with all that covered, let's get into Sonic Riders proper. Let's just get this out of the way real quick. This game has a story mode, but you're not playing this for the story mode at all. Unless you're starting a new save file to unlock everything, it's a one and done playthrough. The story mainly introduces the Babylon Rogues, who act as the new rivals and race in the Grand Prix to discover some secret treasure. Team Sonic tries to beat them out of spite, and that's really it. The dialogue's not very deep, the plot's as shallow as a puddle, and there's no surprises or unexpected events. It's kinda goofy, I guess, and the game leans into the more cartoony side of the series, but that's all it's got going for it. I do have to admit that Eggman holding up the crew with 2 guns is pretty hilarious just on how sudden and absurd it is, but the rest of it is so inconsequential I didn't even capture all the cutscenes. I enjoy Sonic Riders for its gameplay, not its story. And even then, the gameplay for story mode is nothing more than a simplified Grand Prix. Race through 5 tracks as a certain character and get first place. Do that for an hour and that's about it. No collectibles, no special races, just a simple race to the finish. Again, you play through story mode for the unlocks and not much else, so let's move on. Before getting into the gameplay though, I want to cover the visuals and music. With the animated opening intro, the character designs are what immediately stick out. Characters not only have different gear to fit the hoverboards and futuristic themes, but their portraits also have shaded body parts with a rough sketch look to them. It's really appealing and a unique style that unfortunately hasn't been used anywhere else in the series. The shading also doesn't apply to in-game models, just the portraits and menus and stuff, but I'd love to see this art style in other games. In-game graphics don't look too bad though. The tricks look nice, attacks are expressive, and I love the little trails that the extreme gears have. It makes all the flips and tricks more flashy. Characters will wave back to someone you've passed up, or get upset if they've lost the lead. It's small, but adds personality. I also much prefer the use of extreme gear instead of normal carts or something. It just fits the Sonic series better in my opinion. Sure, it's a bit odd that Sonic is driving anything instead of running at Mach 5, but playing fair is part of the fun, so I can't complain. Course themes are a bit generic, but they have some aspects that make them stand out, like going through a frozen cave and waterfall in Splash Canyon, or racing through high-tech ruins in Sand Ruins. Each course also sports a parallel alternate version, usually with the same themes but with remixed designs. So instead of the lively bright streets in Metal City, you'll be cruising by a bunch of police cars and electrical tunnels in Night Chase. The presence of an automated set piece per track keeps things even more distinct. Although, taking a step back, some of these sections can be pretty bizarre. Riding a giant bug in Green Cave, a random teleporting cannon in Dark Desert, and the entirety of Digital Dimension taking place in the underworld, heaven, and a weird digital dimension. It's pretty odd for a futuristic racer, especially with Sonic as the main focus. The graphics seem on par with mid-2000s games, with a few blemishes. Big textures can be pretty pixelated, some popping might occur, especially when the camera's got a wider shot, and 4-player split screen makes it even worse, where the draw distance is much shorter. Some smaller issues might show up as well, like when character heads snap towards other players the wrong way, and characters with long spines freaking out because you're spinning the stick a bunch. But altogether, the game's presentation isn't half bad. The sense of speed is there, aesthetics are solid, and issues are fairly minor. It could be better in some areas, but could be a lot worse. The music ranks about the same as well, with compositions focusing on electronic and techno music to complement the futuristic aesthetics. All stage themes have that electronic touch, but it doesn't overshadow the distinct stage motifs. The alternate versions of each track unfortunately doesn't have their own music, but the one track for both versions works surprisingly well. Most of the soundtrack is pretty good, and I can't really think of a track I outright dislike. The only sticking point is the audio mixing, because just like any Sonic game from the early 2000s, sound effects and voice lines can be wildly inconsistent in volume. Characters can be too quiet sometimes, too many sound effects can drown out the music, and some specific sounds can just blast your ears out. One of the main offenders to all of this is the Oma Chow commentator, who comments on basically everything you do. It makes sense for a Grand Prix, but it gets old and repetitive pretty fast, so I'm thankful I have the option to turn it off. There's also these short jingles that play in the Sega stages, which are nice little details, but I wish I could turn them off. They only play on the first lap, which mitigates my problem, but it interrupts the main music and it gets old on replays. Overall, the sound design could use some work, but the music is pretty good. Now it's time to get into the gameplay. Sonic Riders is the franchise's very unorthodox attempt at a racing game, with a lot of mechanics to get through. In fact, that's the first thing I'd have to knock Sonic Riders for, and it's the poor attempt at teaching its mechanics. If you think the story mode would help you with a tutorial, apparently that's common sense the devs didn't have, because it's hidden all the way in the extras menu, and even then it's a sloppy guide to how the game works. It's only 2 minutes long, so all explanations are terribly short, and it doesn't even cover some of the more important mechanics. It's better than going in blind, but with a game this complex, it's far from adequate. Anyways, Sonic Riders is a heavily skill-based racer where items are downplayed in favor of pure skill and game knowledge. The main focus of your races should be your air meter. Think of it like your gas tank. It slowly drains over time and drains even faster when you boost or drift. The best way to refill your air meter is by doing tricks. By charging a jump off a ramp, you can spin and perform tricks with a control stick. The more tricks you do, the more air you refill. But if you don't land properly, your tricks are invalidated and you slow to a crawl. Keeping your air meter in check is important, because you'll be boosting and drifting a lot to keep your lead. Boosting also attacks nearby racers, so if you're close to someone, a boost can help you attack or bypass them. If you end up falling behind, racers in front of you will leave a trail of turbulence. You can ride this to catch up and refill your air, as it also allows you to perform tricks if there's any red arrows showing up on the side. This has its limits though, as it's following the exact same path of a leading racer. So if you want to take a certain route or shortcut that the turbulence might avoid, you can exit the turbulence by pressing the shoulder buttons. Now that's already pretty deep for basic stuff, but there's still more to cover. Each character sports a type class: speed, fly, or power. These allow access to the specific type shortcuts present in each track. Using these grants you another means to refill your air and may be faster than the normal routes. Other shortcuts are present through certain ramps, where either a front flip or back flip can lead you to a higher pathway. It might seem unclear on what type of flip is needed to access these shortcuts, but it depends on how the ramp is shaped. If the ramp is flat, it's most likely a front flip needed to reach a shortcut. If the ramp curves up, then you need to backflip. As for the small ramps, a backflip will send you higher, and a front flip will send you farther. These shortcuts also require you to charge up your jump for a bit longer, so if you don't charge enough, you're not making it. But that's still not everything. There's also the level system. Each race has you start at level 1. By collecting enough rings, you can reach levels 2 and 3, giving you better stats, a faster boost, a bigger air meter, and a much more devastating attack. Reaching level 3 is almost essential for keeping first place, so collecting rings is always important. And there's a bunch of gear and characters that you can choose from as well, with different stats and special attributes that the game poorly explains. Whether that's strong top speed, a powerful singular boost, an enhancement to certain stats, or even gaining access to different type abilities, there's a lot to play with. And that's still not everything the game has to offer, but I think you get the gist of it. There's a lot of mechanics to juggle, and while it seems like a jumbled mess, it all works pretty well together once you get it all down. More tricks means more air, which means more boosts. Knowing shortcuts and stage knowledge helps with collecting rings, which helps with level ups and stat gains. Now, again, taking a step back, it seems a bit questionable as to why they made so much of these systems. Why have a level system instead of having all racers be on a single base level? Why have all these different type classes when all of them usually appear together? I can see that it might be a bit overcomplicated just for the sake of being different, but I think it helps incentivize and reward players for good play and taking specific routes or shortcuts. Just like any other skill-based racer, the game benefits players who've mastered the game more than others. But just like every other skill-based racer, it has many faults in terms of balance and other design choices. First of all, there aren't much tracks to play on. If we're excluding the one boss fight track, because it's a boss fight, there's only 15 total courses, including the alternate versions. The deeper course design mitigates the lesser amounts, but since half the tracks share similar themes, it can seem a bit lacking. That also means there's only 2 Grand Prix to play, which is pitifully small. I feel like they could have made a third one with the unlockable tracks, but they only have the 2. Buying all the extreme gear in the shop also requires a lot of grinding, since most of them can cost thousands of rings to buy. It's encouraging replayability, but still a time sink. And with Sonic Riders being a skill-based racer, obviously if one person knows better than the other, the entire race will be completely one-sided. Some items can help, but there isn't something like a blue shell to slow down a player firing first. Falling off the map or getting attacked is also severely punishing, because they not only downgrade you back to level 1, but in the case of a fallout, you're sent backwards. Bumping into walls can turn you the wrong way, jumping off ramps can be a bit strict in timing, turbulence can block off certain paths, and tracks like Metal City and Night Chase have a lot of obstacles with the cars everywhere. There's also an unfairly overpowered item present in almost every track, which is the 100 ring capsule. It's hidden, so it takes some effort to find, but it instantly grants you level 3, which basically means you won the race. Since it's usually obtainable within the first lap, and no one else can get it, it's practically a guaranteed win. This also makes the start of the race pretty messy, because it's now a race to get the 100 ring blocks first, and attacking everyone right at the start to get ahead. And even ignoring the 100 ring boxes, the tracks clearly favor some type classes over others. Power types are rarely given a big shortcut. In fact, this one in Egg Factory is actually slower than the normal routes. And fly types often get more air refills and better shortcuts overall, with speed types being the most balanced between the two. Extreme gears also drastically range from insanely powerful to flat out crippling. Not to mention it's not easy figuring out what they can do, since their stat names and descriptions can be pretty vague. Sometimes they just flat out don't mention a specific downgrade. Like the cannonball skates say they can execute constant boosts, but what it doesn't tell you is that it can't attack other racers, and it can't refill air through normal means. And that leads all the way back to my first and biggest issue of the game: it's just terribly taught and hard to learn. All these mechanics form to make a racing game I can really have some fun with. I've played this game for over 100 hours for a reason, and that's not even including previous save files. It's a game that rewards you well for knowing the track design, taking advantage of type classes, and utilizing the right gears for the right tracks. But learning this game is like taking a final exam with scribbles for notes. The lack of a proper tutorial is extremely damaging to the game. Even considering the shoddy tutorial video, it doesn't explain the level system, ramp shortcuts, exiting turbulence, attacks, braking, and a bunch of other stuff that is most likely essential for basic gameplay. Not to mention the terrible gear descriptions and unbalanced gameplay on top of it all. But even with all of its problems, I still think that Sonic Riders is good enough to at least check out and try for yourself. With enough practice and an actual tutorial that you can easily find on YouTube, I think this game offers a unique type of racing game that you probably won't find anywhere else. The only mechanically deep racing game I can think of is Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled and Speedrunners, but the mechanics of those are tiny compared to everything Sonic Riders throws at you. It's certainly far from perfect, but given some time and dedication, you might find Sonic Riders a fun time. And that's not even everything within the game. The mechanics are all covered, thankfully, but there's other modes to try out which are nice little distractions. There's Tag Mode, where 2 pairs of racers are chained together and share a single tank. The Racing Battle Mode, which has 4 players race to keep an emerald and pass checkpoints. And the Survival Battle Mode, which has 4 players collect upgrades and attack each other until 1 player remains. They're decent distractions, but lack any substance. The races also cut off most shortcuts with these barriers, which can look super off-putting when you see them everywhere. The more noteworthy mode is the Mission Mode, where you have 100 missions to complete with ranks based on your performance. Whether that's how good your tricks are, how many items you've collected, or just completing a track with new obstacles, it's got enough depth to it that makes it a nice diversion from the standard races. I don't think it's on the level of something like Mario Kart DS's Mission Mode, but it's not too bad either. It gets repetitive after some time, but that might be because I played through all 100 missions in 2 sittings, so take that with a grain of salt. The reward for doing all these missions is mainly the access to Super Sonic, which sounds like a fun broken character to play as, only to realize that he runs on rings and not air, which means that he's worse than half the other extreme gear by default. A pretty disappointing reward honestly, but still a decent incentive to complete all the missions. Looking back on Sonic Riders with a more critical eye, the flaws are certainly much more apparent. Not only is the abundance of mechanics pretty overwhelming, but failing to properly teach all of them brings down the first few hours for any newcomer, or may even turn away newcomers. It's pretty telling when even after years of playing this game, I only just realized that this ledge is actually a ramp I can jump off of, or that this power shortcut exists at all. There's a clear lack of signs or conveyance as to how the game works, and that is essential to designing a good video game. Because no matter how good a game is, if you don't understand how to play it, new players will give up and move on. If you're able to get past that steep learning curve though, I think Sonic Riders can be really enjoyable. There's a lot of boards to use, characters to unlock, and various courses with plenty of shortcuts to find. The trick system and air meter are rewarding to manage properly, different type shortcuts add a nice layer to each course, and the amount of characters and board combinations can be fun to experiment with. I know for a fact that I'll still be coming back to this game every now and then because the core mechanics are just that fun. That may be my nostalgia blinding me, but this game's got its dedicated fans for a reason. Honestly, if the game was better explained and balanced, I think Sonic Riders would be much better than it is now. But unfortunately, later installments of the series would change up the formula drastically, up to the point of forcing the Xbox Kinect as a controller and killing the series then and there. Pretty sad how the first game of the trilogy is where the spin-off series peaked, but with the returning Crossworlds, I'm hoping they'll be just as fun as they were in the original Riders. But only time will tell. If you're looking to play Riders for yourself, you're kinda out of luck unless you find an old physical copy online or somehow find a version on PC. But if you're able to play the game and are willing to learn a bit, I'd say give it a try. Just don't go in expecting a standard kart racer and get a tutorial on standby too. In fact, I might as well link a good one if you're planning on checking it out soon. If that's the case, I wish you good luck. But that's about it for this video. Here's hoping my next video didn't take as long. I'm kinda falling behind in terms of a consistent schedule, but it's better than a sudden 6-month gap. Either way, like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want more of this kind of stuff, or maybe don't if you don't wanna. You do you. I'll see you later.